Finally a game day. Side Adrian to the 5, Adrian Martinez in, touchdown, Nebraska, 5-20, 15-10, knocked out of bounds inside the 10, Luke McCaffrey.
Gets hit and goes down, and that's a sack for the Huskers.
Jayson Jorgensen with you as we bring you another edition of HuskerChat, brought to you by Newcomb Diesel of Kearney. As always, we are joined by the publisher of HuskerOnline, Sean Callahan. Well, Sean, an interesting week in Husker football, despite the fact we didn't have a game, but we cross our fingers this week, and hopefully Nebraska gets a matchup at Northwestern.
Yeah, it was a week of ups and downs. I mean, we thought Nebraska was going to play Wisconsin, then it gets canceled. They thought maybe they were going to play Tennessee Chattanooga. That got canceled. I guess if you're trying to look at it as a glass half full approach, Nebraska has gotten extra preparation now to study Northwestern, to study their new offensive coordinator. They were able to practice for Northwestern on Friday and Saturday and Monday. They took the mandatory election day off, which is a NCAA deal this year. So they were able to get additional prep and work in, and you would hope the Huskers are prepared now for this game on Saturday.
I kind of like Coach Frost's comment. He said, we've got to set the record for the team that's had the most practices in just one football game. Now, Northwestern coach Pat Fitzgerald came out this week and said that was a huge advantage for Nebraska not to play. I think I'd have to agree with Coach Frost on this one. I think early on in the season, you don't want any bye weeks.
Well, and that's why they pushed so hard to get Tennessee Chattanooga. They just wanted a repetition. They wanted games. They really only played about 60 to 65 snaps of offense against Ohio State. They weren't able to really get that full rhythm going, and they want that. I mean, they want a Saturday where they can get out and run their stuff and do what they want to do and practice that. And that was a big loss last week, not getting that opportunity, even if it was against Tennessee Chattanooga. And now the challenge is you're on the road again. You haven't been at home yet, which it doesn't really matter right now without fans. But you would like to be able to play a game, sleep in your own beds. And they'll get that chance on the 14th of November against Penn State, which, by the way, is another 11 a.m. kickoff. So the three scheduled games that Nebraska has on paper right now are all 11 a.m. Kickoff games. So got to get used to those early starts.
What's your take on this Northwestern bunch? They weren't very good a year ago. They took a couple of steps backwards going 3-9, but boy, here they are 2-0, an impressive win over Maryland. And that was a big win for them to find a way to fight back and beat Iowa.
Yeah, Northwestern kind of does what they do. And I think when they have expectations, they don't meet them. But when you don't expect much from them, that's when they tend to have their better teams. And I don't know if a lot of people expected much out of this team this year. Pat Fitzgerald fired his longtime offensive coordinator after last year's struggles when they went 3-9. And they had really one of the worst offenses in the Power Five. I mean, as far as the numbers go, they brought in a new coordinator. They're running some more pro-style elements with the spread. So they tried to change things up, but they're still very good on defense. And that's really been their recipe. And I wouldn't say they're elite, but what they do is they don't give up big plays. And that has been the history of Northwestern. They kind of run a deep quarter zone, bend but don't break. They'll be okay to give up 10-yard plays here and there, but very rarely will you see them give up plays longer than 20 yards. So they make you earn what you get, and they oftentimes force you into mistakes, and they find ways to maximize those mistakes.
Today on Husker Chat, we're joined by Sean Callahan, the publisher of HuskerOnline. Once again, Husker Chat is brought to you by Newcomb Diesel of Kearney. And Sean, as history would show us, when Nebraska and Northwestern get together, this has been one of the great series since Nebraska has joined the Big Ten. There's usually a lot of high drama, and these are cliffhanger games.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, Jayson. This is the 10th straight year Nebraska's played Northwestern. I remember that first game vividly when they came into Lincoln and Nebraska had just beaten Michigan State, and they knocked off Nebraska. Nebraska was a top 10 team at that point. And you knew from that point on, this was a team you couldn't underestimate. You look at the series, though, Jayson, 6 of the 9 games have been decided by 3 points or less. 7 of the 9 games have been decided by 7 points or less. And then you look at this stat. The road team, which Nebraska is the road team this week, is 6-3 in the series. So it's been very exciting. It's been very entertaining. And the road team, of all things, has had the success.
What's your take on this one as you start to boil it down? What are maybe a couple of the big keys for the Huskers to try to find a way to pull out the victory?
They need to find explosive plays and rhythm on offense against a defense that doesn't give you much. I really think Nebraska can win this game, but they've got to execute on offense and obviously eliminate those fumbles that we saw from Martinez and McCaffrey in week one. Defensively, I'm not as worried. I mean, I think Northwestern has guys that can hurt you, but I think Nebraska can match up with what they do. I know a year ago they really had a lot of success. And I'm looking forward just to seeing Nebraska for a second time this year. I mean, I want to learn more about this team, as I feel like very few of us right now, and I do it for a living. We don't know much about this Nebraska football team at this point.
This figures to be a 50-50 game, and there figures to be more of these because when you look at the Big Ten, and even though it's been just a couple of weeks, it really looks like Ohio State, as we expected, at the top of the class. Then after that, everyone else is pretty equal.
Yeah, you look at the league after Ohio State, it's hard to imagine. Maybe Wisconsin could be a undefeated or one-loss team, but they're not going to play for a second week in a row. But even then, we don't know much about the Badgers. They beat Illinois, and Illinois is not a great team. And we don't know much about Wisconsin at that point. But you're right. This Big Ten after Ohio State is extremely wide open. And I think a lot of teams could emerge. I mean, who would have thunk that Northwestern and Purdue are 2-0 right now in the Big Ten West, and Iowa and Minnesota are 0-2. I mean, there's just no way anybody could have seen the start of this season, especially Maryland last week, beating Minnesota. I mean, that one, I think, threw everybody off.
Well, it is 2020, so we'll see what happens this week. Sean, as always, thanks a lot for your time.
All right, Jason, thank you.
And that was Sean Callahan, the publisher of HuskerOnline. Once again, our guest for HuskerChat. And HuskerChat is brought to you every week by Newcomb Diesel of Kearney. For KRVN Sports, I'm Jayson Jorgensen.